General William Westmoreland once declared that the Medal of Honor recipients of Vietnam represented the finest examples of American courage under fire. Today, with access to previously classified after-action reports and modern battlefield analysis, military experts are discovering that even Westmoreland didn't know the full extent of what these men accomplished. Declassified North Vietnamese Army documents now reveal that at Ia Drang, American forces faced 3 full regiments instead of the single regiment commanders believed they were fighting. These newly available records show tactical decisions and acts of heroism that remained buried in classified files for decades. But the most striking discovery may be simpler than complex battlefield analysis. The basic numbers that most Americans know about Vietnam Medal of Honor recipients have quietly changed. The hidden numbers, updated Vietnam Medal of Honor statistics. Recent archival research has revealed that the official count stands at 268 Vietnam Medal of Honor recipients, not the 246 figure that appears in most history books. This total includes 235 awards granted during the war years and 33 additional recognitions awarded after 1973. Military archivists working with previously inaccessible classified documents have confirmed these additional recipients through a painstaking process that began when the National Archives implemented new digitization protocols for Vietnam-era documents in 2018. The discovery process revealed systematic problems that buried heroic actions in bureaucratic failures for over half a century. Military historians gained access to after-action reports that had been classified at levels beyond what previous researchers could review. These documents contain detailed accounts of heroic actions that were witnessed, documented, and recommended for the Medal of Honor, but never processed through the award system. The classification levels were so restrictive that even senior military officials conducting awards reviews in the 1970s and 1980s could not access the supporting evidence. Dr. Margaret Chen, chief military historian at the Army Heritage and Education Center, spent 3 years cross-referencing over 12,000 after-action reports with awards databases. Her team discovered recommendation packets that had been separated from their supporting documentation due to different classification levels. In several cases, the heroic actions were described in operational reports marked top secret, while the formal award recommendations were filed separately as confidential documents. The military bureaucracy of the Vietnam era simply lacked the systems to connect these scattered pieces of evidence. The case of Private First Class Milton L. Olive, III, illustrates how bureaucratic failures nearly erased extraordinary heroism from the historical record. When Olive threw himself on a grenade to save his squad members during a patrol near Phu Quang in October 1965, multiple witnesses documented his sacrifice. However, his Medal of Honor recommendation became separated from supporting witness statements when his unit was rapidly redeployed. The recommendation packet sat incomplete in administrative files for 8 months before a persistent sergeant major tracked down the scattered documentation. Olive's family waited nearly 2 years for official recognition of their son's sacrifice, despite clear evidence of his heroic action. Recent database analysis shows that the current total includes awards granted as recently as 2022. Specialist Dwight W. Birdwell received the Medal of Honor in 2022 for his actions during the Tet Offensive, when he single-handedly defended a Saigon ammunition depot against overwhelming enemy forces. His recognition came after newly declassified intelligence reports confirmed witness accounts that had been dismissed as impossible for over 50 years. The 2010 award to Staff Sergeant Salvador Giunta and the 1981 upgrade of Master Sergeant Roy Benavidez's Distinguished Service Cross represent similar cases where additional evidence eventually supported Medal of Honor recognition. The demographic breakdown of recipients has shifted dramatically as the veteran population ages. In 1975, approximately 40% of Vietnam Medal of Honor recipients were living. By 2025, fewer than 12 recipients remain alive. This dramatic change means that 256 of the 268 awards are now posthumous, creating new urgency around preserving the historical record. The families of living recipients have become crucial sources for understanding actions that were never fully documented in official reports. Administrative challenges during the Vietnam War created systematic barriers to Medal of Honor processing. The military's rapid deployment schedule meant that units were constantly reorganizing and personnel were frequently transferred between commands. Award recommendations that required multiple levels of review often became lost when recommending officers were reassigned or killed in action. The bureaucratic requirement for corroborating witness statements became nearly impossible to fulfill when entire units were destroyed or scattered across different theaters of operation. Modern military historians now use sophisticated cross-referencing techniques that were impossible during the Vietnam era. Computer databases can instantly compare American operational reports with captured North Vietnamese Army documents to verify the details of specific engagements. This process has confirmed several Medal of Honor actions that seemed too extraordinary to believe based solely on American witness accounts. Enemy documents often provide precise details about American tactical movements and casualty infliction that corroborate Medal of Honor recipients' accounts of their actions. The integration of North Vietnamese Army records has proven particularly valuable for verifying helicopter rescue missions and special operations activities. Enemy commanders documented American actions that inflicted significant casualties or disrupted major operations. These records often contain specific details about individual American soldiers whose actions had strategic impact on North Vietnamese operations. Military historians can now match these enemy accounts with American award recommendations to provide independent verification of heroic actions. Classification reviews conducted between 2020 and 2024 have declassified thousands of documents that were previously inaccessible to awards researchers. Many of these documents contain radio transcripts, medical reports, and tactical assessments that provide crucial evidence for Medal of Honor cases. The declassification process revealed that some of the most detailed accounts of heroic actions were contained in intelligence reports that were never shared with awards boards due to security concerns. The technological revolution in military record keeping has enabled researchers to identify patterns that were invisible to previous generations of military historians. Database searches can now instantly locate all references to specific individuals across multiple document collections. This capability has uncovered cases where Medal of Honor-worthy actions were mentioned in dozens of separate reports, but never consolidated into formal award recommendations. The expanded recognition of Vietnam Medal of Honor recipients represents more than numerical correction. Each additional award represents a family that waited decades for recognition, a unit history that was incomplete, and a heroic action that was nearly lost to bureaucratic failure. The scope of heroism demonstrated by American forces in Vietnam was actually greater than previous documentation suggested, with some of the most extraordinary acts of courage only now receiving the recognition they earned over 50 years ago. But the most significant revelations about Vietnam heroism have emerged from an unexpected source: the enemy's own military records. Declassified revelations, what we now know about Ia Drang. North Vietnamese Army documents declassified in 2022 reveal that American forces at Ia Drang confronted 3 full regiments totaling approximately 3,200 enemy soldiers, not the single regiment that US intelligence had identified before the battle. These enemy records, captured during later operations but classified for nearly 6 decades, show that the 33rd NVA Regiment had been reinforced by elements of the 66th Regiment 2 days before the first American helicopters landed at Landing Zone X-Ray. The North Vietnamese had established a regimental command post less than 2 kilometers from the landing zone and had positioned heavy weapons teams in prepared positions that American reconnaissance never detected. Enemy tactical plans recovered from captured command bunkers demonstrate that NVA commanders viewed the Ia Drang Valley as a decisive engagement opportunity, rather than the chance encounter that American histories have described. Colonel Nguyen Huan, the North Vietnamese field commander, had positioned his forces specifically to draw American units into the valley where superior numbers could overwhelm the helicopter-delivered infantry. The enemy documents revealed detailed knowledge of American air mobility tactics, including specific information about helicopter capacity, typical landing zone configurations, and standard deployment patterns for cavalry units. Declassified after-action reports and terrain analysis revealed that North Vietnamese forces occupied high ground positions around landing zone X-ray that provided clear fields of fire across multiple American defensive positions. The terrain analysis shows that NVA forces controlled 3 separate ridgelines that dominated the landing zone, creating overlapping kill zones that trapped American units in a tactical disadvantage far worse than commanders realized during the battle. This defensive positioning took months to construct and represented a level of preparation that contradicts the official American assessment of Ia Drang as an unexpected encounter battle. The most significant barrier to American tactical success came from classification restrictions that prevented crucial intelligence from reaching ground commanders. Declassified American intelligence reports from November 1965 show that senior commanders at brigade level possessed information about the presence of 2 additional NVA regiments in the Central Highlands region, but strict radio security protocols prevented this intelligence from reaching battalion and company commanders who were planning the Ia Drang operation. The classification level of these intelligence summaries meant that only officers with top-secret clearances could access the information, effectively excluding most field commanders from crucial tactical intelligence about enemy strength and positioning. Dr. Margaret Chen, chief military historian at the Army Heritage and Education Center, discovered through her cross-referencing research that communication intercepts had identified unusual radio traffic patterns in the Ia Drang area for 2 weeks before the battle, indicating the presence of regimental-level command elements. However, the intelligence distribution system failed to translate these technical intercepts into actionable tactical intelligence for ground commanders. The signal's intelligence remained compartmentalized within specialized units and never reached the officers who were selecting landing zones and planning tactical operations. Forensic analysis of battlefield artifacts recovered during archaeological surveys between 2018 and 2023 has validated witness accounts that military historians previously considered exaggerated or impossible. Ballistics analysis of recovered projectiles confirms that North Vietnamese forces employed 82 mortars, 75 recoilless rifles, and heavy machine guns in greater numbers than American after-action reports documented. The physical evidence shows crater patterns and projectile impacts that match witness descriptions of intense indirect fire that seemed impossible given the supposed enemy capabilities. Specific tactical innovations by Medal of Honor recipients become clear only when analyzed with complete documentation from both sides of the battle. First Lieutenant Walter Joseph Marm's assault on an enemy machine gun position involved tactical movement patterns that seemed reckless based on American records alone. However, North Vietnamese after-action reports describe Marm's approach as a sophisticated flanking maneuver that exploited a specific weakness in their defensive positioning that American forces should not have been able to identify. Enemy documents credit Marm's tactical decision with disrupting a coordinated attack that would have overrun American positions. Staff Sergeant Carl Mills's actions during the final day of fighting involved coordinating helicopter landing operations under intense enemy fire. Declassified damage assessments show that Mills directed aircraft operations while North Vietnamese forces maintained accurate fire from positions less than 200 meters from the landing zone. Enemy reports describe Mills's tactical coordination as preventing the destruction of multiple helicopters and enabling the evacuation of wounded soldiers who would otherwise have been killed or captured. Declassified radio transcripts from the battle provide unprecedented access to the real-time decision-making of Medal of Honor recipients during critical combat moments. These recordings capture Lieutenant Colonel Harold Moore's coordination with subordinate commanders as they identified tactical opportunities and directed Medal of Honor recipients towards specific objectives. The transcripts show that recipients often volunteered for the most dangerous missions after hearing radio reports about threatened American positions or wounded soldiers requiring rescue. Radio recordings of Sergeant Major Basil Plumley's communications during the heaviest fighting reveal tactical coordination that enabled multiple Medal of Honor actions to succeed simultaneously. Plumley's radio traffic shows him directing ammunition resupply, coordinating medical evacuations, and identifying enemy positions while maintaining communication with Medal of Honor recipients who were executing individual tactical missions. The transcripts demonstrate that successful heroic actions required sophisticated coordination with supporting elements that previous accounts had not documented. The Medal of Honor recipients at Ia Drang demonstrated tactical brilliance that exceeded contemporary recognition because military analysts could not evaluate their actions within the complete tactical context that enemy documents and modern analysis have now provided. Their heroic actions represented sophisticated tactical thinking that adapted to battlefield conditions far more complex and dangerous than official American records documented at the time. Yet the framework used to evaluate these extraordinary actions has itself undergone dramatic transformation since the Vietnam era. The evolution of heroism, how Medal of Honor criteria changed. The standards that governed Medal of Honor awards during Vietnam differ substantially from the criteria applied today. This evolution means that heroic actions evaluated under 1960s standards faced requirements that were both more restrictive and less comprehensive than modern assessments. The military's approach to recognizing valor has transformed through decades of research into combat psychology, advances in forensic science, and expanded understanding of what constitutes extraordinary heroism under fire. Documentation requirements during the Vietnam era demanded fewer corroborating sources, but imposed stricter limitations on the types of evidence considered acceptable. Awards boards relied primarily on witness testimony from surviving soldiers, medical reports, and unit after-action summaries. The military rejected recommendations that lacked specific details about tactical outcomes or could not demonstrate measurable impact on unit survival. This system excluded many heroic actions that occurred without witnesses or in classified operations, where supporting documentation remained inaccessible to awards reviewers. Modern Medal of Honor evaluations require extensive forensic analysis, multiple independent sources of verification, and detailed reconstruction of tactical situations using advanced technology. Current standards demand video evidence when available, ballistics analysis of recovered materials, communications intercepts, and cross-referencing with enemy documentation. These requirements create higher evidentiary standards while simultaneously enabling recognition of actions that Vietnam-era reviewers could not adequately verify. The military's understanding of combat psychology has fundamentally altered how awards boards evaluate decision-making under extreme stress. Vietnam-era criteria focused on observable actions and tactical results without considering the psychological pressures that influenced individual choices. Modern evaluations incorporate research showing that heroic decisions often represent conscious moral choices made despite severe psychological trauma, fear, and physical exhaustion. This understanding has validated many Vietnam actions that seemed impossible or reckless according to 1960s military doctrine. Combat stress research has revealed that individuals operating under extreme duress demonstrate decision-making patterns that differ significantly from peacetime psychological profiles. Modern awards criteria recognize that Medal of Honor recipients often perform actions that contradict their training or established tactical procedures, because combat conditions demand innovative responses to unprecedented threats. Vietnam recipients frequently made tactical decisions that violated standard operating procedures, but proved tactically superior under specific battlefield conditions. Several Vietnam veterans have received upgraded awards decades after their original actions, as evolving criteria enabled proper recognition of their heroism. Technical Sergeant John Chapman's actions during Operation Anaconda in Afghanistan initially received the Air Force Cross, but were upgraded to the Medal of Honor in 2018 after video evidence confirmed details that witnesses could not verify during initial evaluation. This case established precedent for reviewing Vietnam-era awards using modern analytical techniques. Medical advances have transformed understanding of the physical capabilities demonstrated by Medal of Honor recipients during their heroic actions. Vietnam-era evaluations often dismissed witness accounts that described recipients continuing to fight while sustaining injuries that medical knowledge of the time suggested would incapacitate any individual. Modern trauma medicine has documented cases where individuals perform extraordinary physical feats while experiencing severe blood loss, multiple fractures, or penetrating wounds that should theoretically prevent continued combat effectiveness. Video evidence and advanced forensics have replaced the witness testimony-dependent system that governed Vietnam Medal of Honor evaluations. Modern awards boards can analyze digital recordings frame by frame to verify specific details about tactical movements, weapons usage, and casualty infliction. Vietnam Medal of Honor evaluations relied entirely on human memory and verbal accounts from individuals who had experienced severe psychological trauma during combat. Modern research demonstrates that combat stress significantly affects memory formation and recall accuracy, particularly regarding specific details like timing, distances, and sequential events.